Greetings everyone, and welcome to Keeping Up with Papa Life After Work, where we find out how one man manages to keep himself busy, physically active, and mentally engaged after retirement with projects. Today's project? Well, today's project is a first impressions review and discussion of a few mods done to my new Kubota B2601 tractor. Check it out.
When one of them here. I have to keep mine here though on the side. I can
Welcome back. Well, if you saw my first video discussing the B2601, you'll remember that I promised that as soon as I'd had it for a few weeks and put it through its paces, I would come back and do some sort of a first impressions video on a tractor. Well, I've had it now for about 4 weeks, maybe pushing 5, and it's got around 37 hours on it already. I've been busy with it. So now it's time to talk about what I've learned about how well the tractor performs, any issues that may have come up in the interim, and perhaps a few modifications that I've done to the tractor since I purchased it. Let's get started. Let's start off with why I upgraded in the first place. Well, the BX, extremely impressed with the BX. Had it for 9 years, had another one for another, I don't know, 8 years probably before that. So why go to a slightly bigger tractor? Well, the BX is more than sufficient for the work that I do around my own property. However, from time to time I hire out to do things for other people, meaning that I move mulch, I move dirt, I do beach tilling or tilling of gardens, for example. And I often had an issue with the BX getting stuck here on beaches in Florida. So I would actually keep the bucket on the tractor so I could kind of push myself, crab walk myself out if I got stuck. I wanted to be able to not have to do that and just show up with the tractor without worrying about the bucket or any special kind of implements. These bigger tires make a big difference in that. This pulls through dirt that the small BX tires simply wouldn't pull through. So I have managed so far to do a few beaches, have absolutely no issue with the tractor pulling the tiller through those wet, sandy, very muddy, sometimes deep mud beaches. That part I am very happy with. Next, stump grinding. Now, a neighbor went in on this with me, and we bought it because I had quite a few stumps to do, and he had a lot of stumps to do. And by the time we brought in the person that actually did stump grinding for a living, this would have paid for itself. And in fact, it did. Now, I didn't go into this with the intention of going into the stump grinding business. However, I have found that I am doing occasional stumps for other people for a fee. The BX did a very good job, but there were times when I would like to have just a little more horsepower at the PTO, pushing that grinder through the stumps. This makes a difference, believe it or not. We go from 23 horsepower to roughly 26 horsepower, and it pulls through the stumps noticeably better than the BX did. So from that perspective, bumping up to the B2601 was a very good idea. Next item, I really wanted a grapple. Now, I could have gotten a grapple for the BX, but the BX had a dedicated front end loader with a bucket attached to it, welded to it. So that meant I would have had to buy an entire new FEL system, front end loader system, including something that was detachable like you have on skid steers to put these on. That combined with a third function valve, I was looking at $5,000 or $6,000. And it just made more sense to me to take that same $5,000 or $6,000 and put it into a new tractor. And frankly, I don't regret it. I've already got probably 15 hours worth of grapple work in, and it's just absolutely fantastic. This is my tiller. This tiller is probably at least 15 years old. Keeps plugging right along. I kind of think it's about time to do some serious maintenance to it, but you know, it'll tell me when it absolutely needs it. One unfortunate expense involved around getting a larger tractor was that I now needed a larger trailer. Originally I had a 12-foot utility trailer, lawn style, with high sides like this, and I carried the BX on that just fine. The B by itself, yeah, it could fit on there. But with any implements, the answer was no, it was not going to. So I moved from a 12-footer to a 16-footer. It was a good investment. It's going to come in really handy. Fuel consumption. Well, I've moved up from a 23 horsepower 2-cylinder to a 26 horsepower 3-cylinder. And fuel consumption has definitely suffered. It uses quite a bit more diesel than the previous Kubota did. Now that's something that I completely and totally expected. You can't get around it. You get a bigger engine and you burn more fuel. While we're talking about fuel, how about adding fuel? Well, you add your fuel right here. And some people have complained that picking up a big, 5-gallon tank of diesel and setting it up here could a little awkward and it could scratch up the hood. So what I've done is I've simply gotten a hold of an old piece of carpet, laid that down, and this is empty, by the way. But pick it up and set it in place, bend the fuel line over, and there you go. Works really, really well, and the top here, the hood, can take the weight of 5 gallons of diesel sitting on it without an issue at all. I don't see it as a problem. Drive over deck. I have mixed feelings about this one. I've used it once already. It actually went very smoothly, but I don't know that it's all that much faster than what I was doing previously, which was dropping everything off, using the front end loader to pick the front end of the tractor up, and then rolling this up to the front where the front end loader was, and then dropping it back down again. And it works very smoothly to do that. But you got to be on concrete to have that happen. With the drive over deck, you conceivably could do that on dirt. It's really not any faster, but it might be more convenient from time to time. What about these quick connect levers for the front end implements? Well, I've never owned anything like this before, so it was a first for me. Now, it ended up being, after a little trial and error and some practice, very, very easy. So I'm really pleased having this option available to me. Here's a quirky little feature that I never thought I'd actually use, but it comes in handy. You can flip this lever up, and instead of activating both rear brakes at the same time, you can activate one side or the other. So if you're in a position where you need to make a really tight turn, you can, and it works. I've done it mowing already. I was quite surprised how well it worked. Interesting feature. I'm glad it's there. Removing the front end loader. Well, they've got this neat system on this new tractor my old tractor didn't have, where all of this is tied into one unit. You actually can just flip a lever, pick it up, drop it into place here, and drive off. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basic concept. You can do the entire thing without getting off of the tractor. You're sitting in the seat. Very, very, very convenient. Now, you can't do that if you have the grapple hooked up, because you have to disconnect the grapple lines up front. No big deal. You still have to get out of the seat and go up front to do it. That's a small price to pay for this kind of convenience. Back end of the tractor, there's really not a whole lot that's anything particularly special about this. You can move these arms in and out a lot faster using these pins. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm sure it's pretty quick. I have adjusted the box blade using this to get an angle on it. That worked really, really well and helped a lot when I was cutting a ditch at kind of an angle. I have a quick hitch for implements and a quick connect, disconnect for the shafts on the implements. We'll talk about that a little more later. This guy right here, great idea. In theory, you can put a hitch ball on there and pull things around the property as you like. In actuality, it's a bit of a problem. I actually got the tractor stuck a while back at the lake, and I wanted to slip a hitch ball in here real quick and use it to pull the tractor out with the truck. No, the hitch ball shaft was too big to fit in this hole. I also have these special couplings we use for off-roading. They wouldn't fit in the hole either. So I don't know what I'm supposed to use. I guess somewhere there's a hitch ball, a 2-inch hitch ball that's got a shaft that's small enough to fit inside of this. I got to go find one. This graduated scale is spectacular. In the case of the BX, you just moved it, you just tapped it and it would go down a little bit. You tapped in the other direction, it would go up a little bit. You had no way to set exactly where you wanted your deck or your tiller or your box blade to drop. Well, in this case, You pick a point that's appropriate, and you go to it, and everything drops down to where you wanted it set. And when it's time to raise it again, you just simply raise it, it all comes up out of the way. And then the next pass with your tiller, you drop it right back down to exactly the same spot. And the tiller is at a preset depth, or the box blade. That is really convenient. Using the front end loader, or the grapple, there's a bit of an issue, at least for me anyway, with the speed at which these implements drop down. They drop fast. And I'd like the ability to drop them really slowly, and sometimes, particularly with the front end loader and I'm scraping dirt, I want the ability to just kind of, touch it a tiny bit so it drops a tiny bit. It's very difficult to feather it with this in comparison to the old BX. As far as functionality on it goes, up and down and curling the bucket, it's great. I've seen some stuff online where people had problems with it, but I've had absolutely no issue along those lines at all. So that part of it, I'm very pleased. Another feature different from the BX. BX had low and high. This has low, medium, neutral, and high. And that is really, really convenient. Low gear, obviously, when you're tilling something or pulling a box blade through something, you're going to want to use that. Medium is what I tend to use probably 80% of the time. Scoop me around the property from point A to point B. I can do a lot of work with it in medium. And then high gets you from point A to point B a lot faster than medium does. Now there is a tendency going uphill for it to try and bog down a little bit, so I don't pressure it too much and put it in high when I'm going uphill. But once I'm on flat ground and I got a long way to go, I slip it right into high and take off. All of this is really a great set of features. People have complained about the seat comfort. I can't really tell much difference in its comfort compared to that of the BX. Now this bounces around a little more, it's a little wobbly, but I don't have an issue with that. And overall the comfort's very good. It's got the armrests if you need them. It's nicely cushioned. The only problem I have is that if you take your weight up off of it very much, it'll shut the tractor down. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. This was unexpected. Tilt steering wheel. At first I thought that was kind of silly, but now that I've used it for the last couple of weeks, I really like it a lot. And it's very easy to just disengage it and pop it back up when you get on and off the tractor. Good feature, very good feature. Two more items of note. The parking brake is here. You press that down and you'll kind of feel it slip into place and lock. Disengage it like so. And this is cruise control. The BX had cruise control, and it really was also a convenient feature to have. And in this case, it's the same. I may at times, it's actually a long way from one end of my property to the other. It's about a quarter of a mile. And I will use this to run from point A to point B, or I may go down the road and do some work for a neighbor, so I can just kind of pop it into cruise at high speed and not have to keep my foot on the pedal all the time. Love it. Engine access. Wow, this is a bit of a game changer. The BX, to say the least, was difficult to get into. This is not difficult at all. Everything is readily available. Fuel filter is right here, very easy to get to. Radiators here, batteries easy to get to. Overflow for the radiators here. Oil filter. Right there, readily accessible. And what's kind of neat is these side panels just pop off with these automotive engine style clips. One right there, and that's it. That whole thing comes off very easily. So if you need additional access, you pop a clip off, pull it out of the way. Keep in mind, please, when I make references to the BX, that my BX was a 2015, so it is really 9 years old. They've made some improvements to the BX since then, as far as, for example, how noisy this is, and hopefully some of the accessibility issues with fuel filters and such. Very first mod I did was this. I had this on the BX. It is really, really convenient. Modification. After multiple hours using the grapple and many times seeing sticks and limbs almost coming in and puncturing the front end of the tractor or even damaging the radiator, I thought it might be time to put a brush guard on this of some sort that's a little more effective. I just got a box from Broken Anvil. Let's go see what's in it. Alright, what's this thing look like?
That ought to do the trick. Hardware. Funny, I was poking around and looking for the instructions, couldn't find them anywhere. They were laying on the floor. But you didn't really need instructions. This is pretty simple. There are pre-drilled holes in the tractor for these two. And then, depending on what you want to do, you can drill your own holes here and here, or you can drill 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they supply you all the hardware for that. Should be pretty simple. Let's find out. Instructions say that if you remove the front implement, it'll be a little simpler, but it also then says it's not really necessary. Let's see if I can manage to do this without taking the bucket off. I think what I'll do is put in bolts and lock it in place temporarily. That will hold it in place long enough for me to get a marker and mark there. The drilling of all this, it would be convenient to have this out of the way. I think what I can do instead is just lift the bucket up and it'll still be completely clear. We'll find out here in just a moment. So I've got a hole there. Got it started. Steel, it should really, I should really use some kind of lubricant. Let's see how far I get. It's actually cutting real well. I'm going to grab a little lubricant. Yeah, a little bit of thread cutting oil. Oh yeah, I got it. Wow. All right. Here's the bolt. Fits perfect. After drilling the first 2 holes, I firmly decided I don't need 2 more. Bolts are 1/2 inch for the small ones and 3/4 for the big ones. All done. Nice and solid. You can see here that I've already scraped up this piece one time with something. So this is really a good idea. Hopefully it will never perform the service it's designed to perform. But the fact that it's here makes me much more comfortable. Another box to open. This one is from JU Fabworks. These are tie downs. Now I debated with myself on this quite a bit. The way I tie down the tractor really works well, and the fact that it's inside that utility trailer also helps. I typically just run straps through things and pull it in nice and snug. You know, this is definitely a better method, particularly if I'm decided to take a long trip with it somewhere. The only downside to it is that right now I use one long strap and I run it from one tie down on the trailer to the other tie down on the trailer and through something on the tractor. I now will need to get 4 new straps to tie it down. Short ones. But you know, I still think it'll be worth it. There's 2 for the front and 2 for the rear. See if we can get them installed. Instructions say to use the same holes that the mid-mount mower uses, which is right here. And it's cut out to go kind of around another bolt that's up there. That's definitely the wrong size. It probably wouldn't hurt to read the instructions. It says 22 millimeter to remove them and a 3/4 to put the new bolts in. Hopefully that doesn't fall off. No, stayed in place. That's good. Sweet, very solid. One more on the front. Rear tie downs. Wow, this really couldn't be much easier with the exception of the fact I was supposed to torque it down to 100 foot-pounds, and I actually should be able to do that with a torque wrench. Should be able to reach it just fine. So, this already has nuts welded onto it. Assuming they work. That one's sort of screws in. I imagine it'll full of a little bit of dirt. And let's see if I can get a torque wrench in there. There's one. And two. All 4 tie downs are in place. Hopefully I have an opportunity to make good use of them. And number 4. So one thing I was curious about was the comparison of this for cutting really thick grass, like along the lake edge here, compared to the BX. Now the BX cut it well, but I would sometimes have to do double passes or cut half and then slip over and cut half, so it weren't completely cutting the entire section at one time. The extra horsepower this has pushes right through without any problem at all. There are a couple of things though that I find interesting. You'll note that it left a trail of grass uncut, and it's right between the port far out left blade, driver's side blade, and the center blade that it's not making a cut sometimes. I checked underneath, they seem to be tight. That happens sometimes when they're loose. This one does not appear to be loose. Maybe it's that arrangement or adjustment you have to do where the blades are lined up a certain way so that one is spinning in the right rotation in relation to the other one, and when they're hitting, I don't know. I'll look into it and see if I can fix it. Under these conditions, it's not that big of a deal. I don't expect everything to be perfect, but if I'm mowing regular grass and it does that, that'll be a problem. The other item of concern is as you're moving along, you'll move just a little bit on the seat or you look backwards and the engine cuts off. That has to do with the sensor under the seat sensing your body weight. And you can shift in the seat, still have all your weight on the seat, and shift a little bit and it still cuts off. And there's probably an easy fix for that. We'll find it and figure out what it is. As far as dealing with running through the water, a little bit of mud, stuff that's right here, not a problem at all. The tractor does just fine. The BX did fine as well. This is taking less effort, I can tell, to get through this heavy stuff than the BX did. Well, if your goal is to leave muddy tracks along the edge of the lake, this really does a good job of that. The BX did it too. This is actually doing it a little bit deeper.
This has the Kubota tires on it, the Titan Kubota combination. It's a special tire, a little bit different from a regular bar tire, R4 tire. A little more interesting looking pattern, much closer to what you would have seen on an R14, which is what I was going to get originally. Then I saw these tires and thought, you know, those are about the same thing as an R14. So they pull really well. I'll see how badly they tear the grass up when I mow one time with it, but I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. As for something like this, it's inevitable. I'm actually cutting this about a week and a half before a holiday weekend, and I'm doing it now intentionally because between now and then, a lot of this mud track will heal up. It won't be seen 10 days from now. If my goal was to break it in and get it dirty, I think I succeeded. Oh, and maybe I shouldn't have bragged on how good the traction is on these tires, because you can, in fact, get it stuck on the beach in the muck. Tinkering with the new tractor and learning, I have a job where I could use the little zero turn along with the tractor. And this is the only way they will both fit on there. I tried turning the tractor around and hanging the bucket over the front. It just doesn't nest well in this case, and it still probably wouldn't be long enough. So I'm looking at this, and I'm not real comfortable with that. You know, the tractor bounces around a lot when the bucket's up high. Bad idea. Also with the BX, the bucket would tend to just kind of drop down over time. That happens, I have flattened my little zero turn. So, got to figure out a plan B. And this is why I have ordered a PTO Quick Release. This is the tiller. And the tiller is difficult to remove, and it's far more difficult to put on. Just getting in here, maybe I'll... Nope. Oh, there it went. Now, in the past, I've had to get this in there the last couple times and pry that out. That time went very smoothly. What doesn't go smoothly is putting it back on. What happens, you go to line this up, and typically I'll put this in neutral or change it over so that it's not in drive mode for the PTO, the rear PTO. And then you'll spin this. On the VX, I would be able to spin it just a little bit and make sure it lined up with the splines. Didn't line up, I'd spin it a little more till it lined up. It's pretty easy. In this case, this is stiff as can be. It's brand new. It's very hard to turn. I'll grab a hold of it with a rag or something, and by then I've gotten all the grease off of it, so I've got to re-grease it again. So this last time took me 10 minutes to hook it up. That point was when I decided to order the PTO Quick Release. Got 2 stumps this afternoon, 3 stumps for 2 different people. Let's see if we can get the Mech-Max on. First time installing the stump grinder. Here's where my problem has been. I can't spin that without getting a rag on it to line it up. Of course, it's not lined up. Which means I have to turn it a tiny bit. Try it again. Nope, can't spin the stump grinder at all. There you go. All right. Now I gotta press that button. There you go. It's in. It's never a good thing when I was tilling this morning and I wiped some arid grass away and found this fall off here and land on the ground. Looks a bit like that bolt belongs right there. So, I'm gonna go get something to put it back in place.
Tractor is brand new. It only has 13 hours on it and already bolts are falling off. This has a nice coating of some sort of Loctite on it. Doesn't appear to have worked. I wonder if I'm going to have the same problem elsewhere. That is stripped out. Great. And I didn't do it. Houston, we have a problem. You see this bolt here and this missing bolt here. And then you look down here underneath and you see two equivalent bolts down underneath. These are the bolts that hold the ROPS on. Well, the threads on the housing are completely stripped out. This one fell out. The other three, I was able to tighten them back up a little bit, but you get to the end of the tightening sequence and they just spin freely with a ratchet. So I did a little bit of research last night, and what I found out is that when the tractor comes into the dealer, the ROPS is not in place. They install it after the fact. And what they have to do is remove the 4 bolts that are in there, which are short bolts, and replace it with long bolts that come with the ROPS. Well, that apparently didn't happen this time, and so what went back in was the original short bolts. They're too short. Just the normal stresses of day-to-day use cause those things to strip out. Well, I sent an email to the dealer last night with an explanation of what I thought was going on based on what I found on the Orange Tractor forum. And they called me back right away and said, yep, we'll take care of this for you. I'll get back to you. Then this afternoon they called me back, and they are sending someone down 3 days from now, 160-mile drive one way, to drill these out and put in helicoils. And your choices are 2. One is you can do what I just mentioned, a helicoil, and the other is you can actually put in an entire new housing. I think that's overkill. Some people will argue for it, but I just don't believe that I'll ever be in position, even if I roll over, that I would tear the new bolts out, particularly with a helicoil in place. So that's going to happen on Thursday. I'm very appreciative of the fact that they jumped right on this, and I will let you know how it turns out. Another issue for which I need to find a solution. This is the cut-off switch for the seat. If you happen to take your weight off the seat when it's moving, it'll turn the engine off, particularly if you're going in reverse, I've found out. Well, the pedal is so tight pushing down on it to go in reverse, and I only weigh about $160, and it shuts off constantly. So I need to find a way to extend this a little bit longer so that it doesn't do that. I don't think I can just unplug anything. I think I actually have to trick it into thinking I'm on the seat. And I can put something up here and just make this thicker as well. And that's something I'm considering also. So this is half of a magnetic plate that's used to mount a cell phone. So I don't think I need a lot of additional thickness. So I cut this in half and I'm going to double it up and stick it on there. Yeah, it hits perfect. Just don't know if it'll work. It may need to be quite a bit thicker. I drove the tractor back up to the barn. As I was backing it in, it requires me to spin around the seat, and the tractor shut off again. So what we just did not work. I've got to come up with something a little bigger, thicker. First mod, I'm going to be replacing this with this. You know what? You know you're either getting old or you're getting smart when you decide you need power tools to remove 2 screws like this. That's it. Alright, gotta get the other one out and drill 2 holes in it at the same dimensions and decide exactly how I want to mount it. So this box, or one very similar to it, was suggested on one of the forums. What I have to keep in mind here is it opens from this side and flips up, and I've got to have the ability for it to open up and hit here, which is not a big deal. The one thing I do lose, however, is the reflector that goes on the back. I probably could move this over to here. I don't really want to do that, and I'm just going to put the reflector in the garage somewhere. Oddly enough, there's a dimple right here. It looks like it'll be perfect for that first screw hole. So I'm going to drill that out and try mounting that one end, see if I like it or not, and run with that. Also, this is a watertight box. It's a Plano fishing box type of an application. And once I've drilled holes in the bottom, it's not watertight from underneath, but it doesn't really matter. If it does get some water in it somehow, I'll probably drill a couple of weep holes in the corners so that any water can drain out. Alright, drilled hole number 1. Bolt fits in there perfect. I can get it to screw in. There you go, that works. Alright, good. So now what I'm going to do is remove this. I'm going to take and get a measurement off the other box and decide where to put hole number 2 and go from there. All mounted, looks nice, opens up just fine. Even fit my hammer in there. And that was one of my really big goals. But the question is this secure? The base of this box, there's a depression between this edge and the actual base of the box, about that much. So if I were to take the screw gun and draw this all the way down, I don't know, it probably wouldn't hurt anything. In fact, that's what I probably will do. But maybe I should put some washers underneath it. Also, maybe I should put some fender washers on the top here so we spread out the pressure when we're driving down the road at 60 miles per hour so the wind's not going to tear the box right off. I wonder if I have any. Nope. I've got lots of washers, but none of them are fender washers that'll fit here. But you know what? I am absolutely, positively, 100% certain that this might not be secure. So I probably will go ahead and pick up some fender washers in the next day or two and just make sure this is nice and stable. In the meantime, let's load it up with some goodies. A few tractor-related items. Got my gloves, the hammer back in there. Got a nice pair of glasses up at the barn, and room for some other trinkets as I need them. I'm going to be very happy with this. Oh, and it even has this nice little side area here for, I don't know, plastic worms. By the way, I realized after I installed this that it makes a lot more sense to have the latch over here where it's easy to get to. Right now I've got to reach way over, or this is in the way, open it up. Over here, wouldn't be much of a problem. The only reason I actually oriented it in this fashion was I was concerned that this latch might fly open driving down the road 65 miles per hour pulling the tractor on the trailer. But I don't think it's a problem at all. This is nice and solid. So I am going to go ahead and flip this around. Flipped at 180. All better. Time to deal with the ROPS issue and the bolts that are coming out. Well, the tech from Linder Tractor up in Moultrie, Georgia has come and gone and done the repair work. I thought I'd share with you exactly how he went about doing this and some of the discussion we had about the best way to deal with this particular application, because there's a lot of differing opinions on the internet on this. Here's how he decided to make the repair. There was no argument given that the bolts that were in it when I got the tractor were the wrong bolts. They were the original bolts, and they intended to be replaced with this bolt. You can see it's quite a bit longer than the original bolt. So when the tech got here, we took a good look at the inside, and the threads were pretty much intact except for just a little bit of area on the front end. Our options were to use a helicoil and rebuild the threads, or replace the entire block, which seems a little bit excessive, or to use the correct bolt sizes, which was this bolt right here. So what we ended up doing, or what he ended up doing, and there's much discussion on this, you'll hear some of it in a few minutes, decided just to go to the new bolts and put a lot of Loctite on them. And it seems to have worked out really well. We just didn't lose that much threaded area on the holes. So I think it'll be very, very secure. I'm really not concerned about it at all. Something I didn't realize is there are actually 6 bolts that had problems. There are 2 down here you can't quite see. There's these 2, and then there's these 2 up here. I missed those 2 entirely. They were gone and missing. So we have now 6 bolts in place. They're all the correct length. We only had a little bit of damaged thread at the very front end of the socket, and everything's got Loctite on it. And I think we're going to be just fine like this.
So you'd have to drill that hole out bigger to screw that in, to screw that bolt.
They don't make a deeper helical?
Not sure. So this is the kit they gave me. That's why when I seen the hole, I'm like, these
Alright.
helicals.
This is interesting point here. Okay, so right now we're getting bite on, I would say, on at least this much. All right, but right to here we're going through the metal of the flange.
Right.
Okay.
So you're getting about this much bite on this bolt.
Where's the whole bolt?
Is it still up there? Yeah, it's still up there on your jar.
So looks kind of like we lost. Well, we lost this much because this was originally biting, and it's not. So, and there was a washer there as well, obviously. So we're now getting this. Really, effectively, we're getting this much additional bite out of this, and that helicoil is about that same size. So what you're telling me is that
You would be taking out good threads to put a helical in, which then takes away all of these threads for this to hold.
That doesn't make any sense. Why they wouldn't have it much longer helicoil than that?
So that's what I'm trying to explain to
No,
you.
I'm following 100% what
Okay.
you're telling me. So, so essentially, I want to end up, if I drill it out, put this in, and bottom it out inside the old hole.
You're only going to have that
I'm only
much
going to have
threads
that much thread. Right now, I have 1.5 times that thread in there already.
with the hole.
With hole that's there. All right, I'm satisfied then. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I thought the hole was only little bitty. That's
Mhm.
why. But then when I actually seen the hole, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a lot deeper than I expected. So I've never really used helicals. I've always either tapped the hole out, and if I drilled a bigger hole, I'd tap the whole thing
Yeah.
just to have more thread.
And the argument against that was that the block is not as thick as you might think it is.
Right. Correct.
And,
So that's kind of why I don't want to drill into it.
yeah.
Just in case, and if I go too far, say the drill bit grabs and goes,
Yeah.
there might be only about that much in between the bolt hole.
If you drilled and tapped, you could easily take out too much metal on the existing hole and go too deep and cut into some other cavity you're not supposed to cut into.
Yes, sir. I mean, if you wanted them helicals, I would have definitely drilled it out and put them helicals in for you. But I just think this is the smarter and more thread.
Well, I was of the assumption the helicoil was going to be the full length of it, and I don't see a point in doing it if the helicoil is shorter than the existing threads that are in there. So all 6 are seated now. All 6 have Loctite on them.
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna see if they have a torque spec for it.
Oh, good.
If they don't have a torque spec for it, I'll go to the normal bolt torque spec on the size of bolt and torque it to that.
All right.
About 45 foot-pounds. It's in between 40 and 50.
Well, that's not very much. Huh.
Well, that's just for a 12 millimeter bolt.
Oh, it was not for this call out.
All right.
You got her?
Yes, sir. They're all torqued to 45. And just like your, if you read your manual,
Uh-huh.
it'll tell you 50 hours, 100 hours, yada, 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 what to torque or what to check torque
Okay.
at. Because on bigger tractors, I'm not sure about these little ones. Because
Yes.
John Deere, all I did was work on big tractors.
Okay.
Every, I think it was 100 hours, you wanted to check your wheel tightness. But the torque spec should be in your manual.
Okay.
So.
Well, I have the tractor here accessible for the work that's being done on the ROPS. I want to try and address this issue where I just cannot get a lot of pressure in reverse. The spring's just so strong. One thing that came up online was to remove this and to take it over to a vise and just take this and bend the angle up a little bit. So let's see if that works. Vise time. I'm going to try and bend it on the original bend that's already there. Alright, so I managed to get it in, and I pulled in this direction and just moved it. It was about here. I moved it in like that. So this whole end physically moved maybe 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch, and that would be up. So let's go put it back on the tractor and see how it does. Wow, I'm surprised. That actually makes a big difference. I can now press down on that rear brake pedal and not feel overly stressed trying to keep it in place. I'm happy with that. That's great. Guess what showed up on the doorstep? The Quick Connects for the PTO. Let's go ahead and put the one on the back of the tractor. So there's one that goes on the back of the tractor, and there's one of each of these for the implements. I swear it looks reversed, but it can't be. That has to be the way it works. Should be that simple. Lines up well. Ta-da! Perfect. Previously, I had a great deal of difficulty grabbing the spline and turning it. Now I have, I guess, better leverage, and I can grab a hold of this. So aligning these pins in all these holes on the other half of this implement should be much easier than it was previously. All right, it's time to use a stump grinder. So this will be the first time I've actually used one of these on an implement. So let's see how well this whole thing goes together. Initially, this goes in, locks in place. So that part, very simple. Let me bring the tractor over. Stump grinder. Oh, you. Third, fourth, fifth time today. I just hit my head. Stump grinder is in place. And let's see if it's something I had to do beforehand. I thought I had plenty of working room, but I may not. Well, that's not going to work. It's going to have to go on first. I'm a little worried that it might be too long of a shaft now. All right, let's try it this way. I'm back to that alignment thing where it's not quite aligned properly, but this one I can spin. Hopefully. Somebody tells you there's nothing to this. That is not the case. Not as easy as it make it look. There you go. That, to lock it, I have to turn this one way or the other. That's unlocked. There you go. Got her. In addition, this pin has to go in. There's a hole down here that goes in too. And we are officially locked in place. All right, it worked. We're going to do a quick test drive here and see, before I go moving this thing, if I'm binding at all. After doing the math as in the instructions on the PTO Quick Lock, it turns out that the shaft for the stump grinder needed to be shortened by 4 inches, which means that this end had to be shortened by 4 inches and the other side had to be shortened by 4 inches. Also, the cowlings, the covers, have to be shortened by 4 inches. Well, that was done on the ground with the first one still hooked up with a reciprocating saw and a blade designed to cut stainless steel. Actually, was not all that difficult. The one on the machine required a little bit of creativity. Now at this slide point, I had clearance before it would hit when I was all the way up. Perfect. Well, that's it. Another project completed. Or perhaps I should say another project started, because like many of you, I will continue to do modifications to the tractor as I find things that make it easier for me to use in my day-to-day tractor usage activities. Well, thanks for watching, and of course, comments and questions, and in particular, advice are welcome. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time on Keeping Up with Papa, Flat Up the Word.